All right, hi, good morning. This is Melissa Green. I'm a accessibility specialist with the Faculty Resource Center's Emerging Technology and Accessibility team. Our team works to ensure that all technology users, including those with disabilities, have a functional and accessible technology experience with the university's websites and the technologies we use for teaching, learning, and administrative functions. You can find more information about our efforts on our website at accessibility.ua.edu. This slide includes a picture of me. I have my webcam turned off, but I thought you might like to see who you're speaking with today. Today's session will cover how to use Adobe Acrobat Pro DC to create accessible PDF forms. Specifically, we'll look at adding fillable form fields and field descriptions, setting tab order, tagging, and other PDF form accessibility tasks. Most folks find it challenging to both watch a webinar and do hands-on work during the webinar itself. However, if you wish to follow along, you can access the exercise files I'll be using via the link I just shared in the chat. What I suggest doing is watching today and then downloading those files to work with in conjunction with the webinar recording so you can work at your own pace. I'll be sure to describe the actions I'm taking so that you can go back and more easily do that later with the benefit of being able to pause and stop and so on. To improve the audio quality, I have muted everyone by default, but when you want to talk, feel free to click the or enable the microphone in the Zoom controls bar to mute or unmute yourself. You can also choose to have your camera on or off. Please do mute your microphone when you're not speaking. When I'm talking or sharing my screen, please write in the chat box and let me know if you can't see or hear something. You're welcome to use the chat box throughout to talk with me or with each other. I may not be able to keep an eye on it while I'm talking, but I'll do my best to check in every once in a while. And if I don't see your question or comment immediately, I will come back to those at the end. This session is being recorded, and I'll send you a link to that captioned recording via email in the next few days, along with links to resources I plan to share during the session. With all of that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. So I have opened in Adobe Acrobat Pro DC one of the exercise files, specifically the exercise file titled CEU Accreditation Form Organization Untagged. Here's what that looks like in the folder. So I have CEU Accreditation Form Organization Untagged open in Adobe Acrobat Pro DC on my desktop. This exercise file, like the others, came from Adobe with their permission to use for training purposes. Before we get into any specifics, I'd like to show you what I've done to set up my Acrobat for accessibility work, and I suggest you do the same, at least while you're learning. So first, we'll enable the view of a couple different navigation panes. We'll do that by selecting View from the Acrobat menu, selecting Show Hide, selecting Navigation Panes, and then the two panes that I wish to show are Order and Tags. So I'll select each of those in turn. So first, Order, and the Order pane is now added to the left sidebar. I'm going to go back and add the Tags pane. So View, Show Hide, Navigation Panes, Tags. And the Tags pane, represented by the tag icon, has also been added to the left sidebar. Next, we'll add shortcuts to the two primary tools Adobe Acrobat Pro DC offers to assist PDF authors in creating accessible documents. The Accessibility Toolset, which provides access to the Accessibility Checker, and the Make Accessible action. And to do that, we'll open the Tools tab, which I'm doing now by selecting Tools in the ribbon at the top of the screen, and then search for each of the tools we wish to add. So the first is the Accessibility tool set. So I'm going to search for Accessibility and select Add to add that to my collection of tools. The other is the Make Accessible Action Wizard, which is part of the Action Wizard tool set. So I'm going to search for Action Wizard. and add that. And then finally, since we're working with forms today, we'll also want to make sure the Prepare Form tool is available. So I'll search for Prepare Form and select Add to add that. So having done that, I can go back to the document, and now in my tool shortcuts in the right sidebar, I have Accessibility, Action Wizard, and Prepare Form. Key best practice when it comes to forms is to use only Acrobat Pro to create interactive form fields. So in other words, if you're using Microsoft Word to create a document that is eventually going to become a PDF form, an interactive PDF form, do not use Word's interactive form features. Instead, what you'll want to do is focus on creating as accessible a source document as possible in Word. Then visually identifying the form fields in the Word document with labels, blanks, plenty of spacing, and so on. And then creating that PDF as you would other types of PDFs from Microsoft Word by using the PDF Maker add-in. So that's what we're starting with today, a form that began in Microsoft Word. The form fields are clearly visually identified. And what I mean by that is we have solid black blanks to indicate where information should be entered. And there are text labels to the left of each blank. So that's what we do in Word. We focus on sort of visual identification and the accessibility of the source document and getting that document saved as a PDF in a way that is as accessible as possible, rather than using Word's built-in form functions to add radio buttons, checkboxes, and text fields and the like. We will be creating our accessible PDF form using what some accessibility specialists call the untagged method. That is, we'll be starting with a PDF document that was originally authored in Word and made as accessible as possible from the start, then saved as a PDF. However, prior to adding form fields, all of the tags have been deleted from the document. And you can see that here in the Open Tags panel. No tags are available. And this is because if you edit a document's original tags, so do the work that you typically do to ensure that a PDF is tagged appropriately and the tags support a logical reading order. If you do all that work and then you add your interactive form fields and tag those, that will overwrite the work that you've done in the tag tree. So instead of starting with existing tags, many of us, self-included, find it preferable to delete all of the existing tags, do our form field work, and then go about adding tags to the document. So the tags have already been deleted from this particular exercise file. We can see that because the pane says no tags available. Since the tags have already been deleted from this file, let me quickly show you how to delete tags from a different document. So I'm switching to another PDF file titled Delete Tags. It's also available in your exercise files. I'm expanding the left sidebar so I can access the tags panel. I'm selecting tags to open up my tag options. Here in the tags pane, I'm going to select the uppermost tag or the uppermost option labeled tags. I'm going to right click that and choose delete tag from the resulting drop down. And this will delete all of the tags from the document. So I might want to save a copy before I did this. I might want to be very sure that it's the untagged method that I wish to use. But I know for sure I want to do that today. So I'm going to select delete tags. And now we have the version of the exercise file that was provided to you in which there are no tags. So that's how you go about removing tags from a document. Going back over to our existing file that our existing exercise file that the tags have been removed from. After deleting from the tags from the document, we're going to add the form fields. So in the Tools pane right sidebar, select the Prepare Form tool. After you make this selection, the Prepare Form screen appears. And we're prompted to do something, to select a file or scan a document to begin. So I'm going to select the document we wish to add form fields to. Typically, by default, it will be the document that you selected Prepare Forms from. So I already have this document open. I click Prepare Form, so that's the option I'm presented with. But notice that you do have the ability to change file if I wanted to, maybe work on a different file or scan a document. If I had a scanner connected to this particular computer, I could use that option as well. So we want to select the CEU accreditation untagged. That's already selected. A couple options here I want to draw your attention to. I am not going to select this document requires signatures box. I advise against selecting that, even if your form does require signatures. And that's because there's a bug where if you check this box, you'll lose some of the properties options for your form fields, some of which are pretty important, like formatting dates. So you want to leave this unchecked. If your document requires a signature, you can always go back in later and insert a signature field. But if we're using the Prepare Forms tool at this time, and Adobe's aware of the bug, I've learned about it from them, I advise leaving this unchecked, even if the document requires signatures. You want to ensure that form field auto detection is on, because we're going to have Acrobat attempt to create form fields. Notice that if in your instance of Acrobat that this is off, if it says form field auto detection is off, there'll be an option that allows you to change that. So I'm just drawing your attention to that. So we selected our file, document requires signatures is not checked, form field auto detection is on. We'll select start to start the process. Before we look at the form fields that Acrobat has added based on the layout of the document, let's look at the layout of the Prepare Form tool functions. So in the Prepare Form ribbon at the top of the screen, so I'm kind of hovering my mouse around the area I'm talking about right now. In that ribbon are all of the form fields you might want to add manually. A text field, a checkbox, a radio button, lists of choices, and so on. In the top right panel, where I'm hovering my mouse now, are options for positioning the form fields. Align, center, match size, distribute. So this has to do with the visual appearance of the form fields. In the bottom right panel, we can access drop downs for more tools, one of which we'll use a little later. But the primary thing we'll be interested in here, this area today, is the Fields pane. So the Fields pane shows the tab order, or the order in which a user will progress through the form fields when using the tab key to navigate the form. We'll be coming back to that momentarily. I'm going to collapse this right panel to give us a little more real estate on the screen. So because we chose to use form field auto detection, Acrobat has added fields based on the layout of the document. So let's note some of the form fields. We have program title, date, time, location, and so on. The form fields Acrobat adds will not always be where you want them. There may be extra fields or missing fields. So to delete an extra field, you can right-click on the field. Let's pretend for some reason we didn't want this program title field. So if we wanted to delete it, we could right-click on it and select Delete from the drop-down menu. And that form field will be removed. To add a missing form field, you'll want to select the type of form field you wish to add from the ribbon at the top of the screen. So I'm going to put a text field back there. We do actually need one. So I'm going to select the text field option. So after selecting the type of field you want, you'll then click on the place in the document where you want the field to appear. So I'll do that now to replace the box that I deleted. After ensuring that all of the necessary fields are present and no unnecessary fields are present, you'll want to set or verify the properties for each field. So I'm going to click out of program title, and notice before it was labeled program title. Acrobat did that automatically as part of its prepare form features. Let me just, for visual aesthetics, go ahead and expand this box. I did that by clicking and dragging to make that the length of the entire blank. So after we've deleted any extraneous form fields that were added automatically or added ones that were missing, next we'll want to set or verify the properties for each field. So I'm going to click once on the text field that I just added for program title. The form field that was previously outlined in black becomes outlined in blue, and that's to indicate that it's the active field I'm working on. Double-clicking on a field opens its properties. Alternately, you can right-click and choose properties. So I'm going to double-click now to open up that field's properties. At a minimum, every form field must have a name and a tooltip set for it in the general properties. So if you use the Prepare Form tool, Acrobat will automatically set the tooltip based on the visible text next to the field, but you should still verify the correctness of the properties of each one. So this first one, this first text field, is the one I manually added after deleting it, so we're starting from scratch. We'll enter program title for the name and program title for the tooltip. The name should be the same as the visible label. The tooltip could be the same as the name, or you might use that field to provide further context or instructions, and we'll look at an example of that momentarily. So name should always match what's visible. So here, program title is the visible label. I've given it the name, program title to match. Tooltip may match, or if necessary, provide some additional context or instructions. So here's a time-saving tip. Once this properties window is open, you can leave it up and select other form fields to view their properties. This can save you, in a long form, many clicks along the way. And that's why most people suggest doing all your adding and deleting of fields before moving on to properties. So if I wanted to move on to the next one, date, I could leave this open, select date, and now I'm in the properties for that date field. Another time-saving tip, for form fields that have similar properties, you can select more than one form field and set the properties for all of them at once. So this is going to work the best for things like appearance or options. So I'm going to select, let's see, the first three. I'm holding down Control and selecting the first three fields in this form: program title, date, and time. There are less options available to me in the properties, but I can do things like set the appearance or a few of the other properties for multiple fields at the same time. I actually don't want to do that though. I only want to work with one at a time, so I'm going back to that. Let me close this. It's a little confused right now. Okay. So program title, tooltip. I'm going to select the next field, the one with the visible label date. The name of this one looks good to me, date. For the tooltip, I'm going to see if any formatting has been specified. So I'm going into the Format tab. Sometimes, in the case of date in particular, the form author may wish users to supply a date or a phone number or other piece of information using a certain format. So let's say that we wanted to do that here. Rather than having format category none, I'm going to change that to date. And then let's say we wanted the respondent to provide their date in the form of month, month, day, day, year, 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 year. Now, that's not necessary for accessibility purposes. That's just something that form authors often do. Where accessibility comes into that, though, is the tooltip. So if we've specified some kind of specific format in which information should be entered in the formatting options, we need to provide those instructions in the tooltip. So I'm going back to General, and here where it currently says date, I'm going to add that formatting information. Month, month, day, day, year, 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 year. The reason we need to do this is because that information is not available in the visible label. Now, if it was available in the visible label, if the text said date, month, month, day, day, year, 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 we wouldn't need to do that. But it isn't, so we need to put it in the tooltip because that's the only place that a screen reader user is going to get that information, is through that tooltip. So our date looks good. Location looks good. Time looks good. We're not going to go through every one of these right now, but we would if we were preparing to distribute this form or make it available on the web. For now, we're just scanning it for anything that might look funky. Okay, this question reads, please check intended audience below. And there are 3 possible responses: nursing home administrator, residential care administrator, and both. I'm going to double click on nursing home administrator to see its properties. So this is a text field, which we can see from the title of the dialog box when I double click it to view its properties. This is a text field when it really needs to be a checkbox or a radio button. Now, if there wasn't a both option, I'd use a checkbox so that respondents could check just nursing home administrator, just residential care administrator, or check both of those boxes. But since this form has a both option, we can make all 3 of these fields radio buttons instead. Now, unfortunately, there is no way to change an existing field type to another field type. So we can't select that text field and convert it to a radio button. So we'll have to replace the text boxes with the radio buttons instead. So I'm going to go ahead and close the properties out. I'm going to hold down the control key and with my mouse select the 3 fields that I wish to replace with radio buttons. I'm going to delete those using the delete key on my keyboard. So all those form fields have been deleted. In the ribbon at the top of the screen, I'm going to select the type of form field I wish to add, and that's a radio button. I'm selecting that now. It turns blue visually to show that I've selected it. Now I'm going to drag the radio button to where I want to add it. In this case, next to nursing home administrator. The radio button dialog appears. So radio buttons need to be grouped. So the first thing we need to do is give the group of buttons a name. So I'm going to call this group of buttons intended audience because it's the group of buttons where folks filling out the form indicate the intended audience. So the name of the group is going to be intended audience. Because that's the language the text in the form uses. For the radio button choice, I'm going to include nursing home administrator because that's the label or the name for the specific radio button, nursing home administrator. To add another button, we can do a couple different things. My preferred workflow is while this dialog is open to select add another button because that'll save me some typing. But we could also add another button in the same way that we added the first button using the ribbon at the top of the screen. If we do that, that just makes them a little harder to group later. So I need to add a radio button for our second choice. So I'm going to choose add another button and then click to indicate where I want the button to be added. Our group name intended audience is already filled in, so we just need to name this second choice, which is residential care administrator. Notice that this is also where we can set properties like whether a field should be required. I'm not going to make this required, so I'm just going to choose add another button. Put the radio button where I want it to be. Intended audience group name is still there, so I just need to label this choice both. I'm going to click out of this. Let's line the buttons up visually. So I'm going to open the right side panel because that's where we have all of our sort of visual alignment options. What you'll want to do is select the radio button you want to align to. So I'm pretty happy with where I've placed the radio button for residential care administrator. So I'm using my button to click on that. And then I'm going to choose, the other two, and then choose the vertical alignment option, align vertically. So I'm selecting that now. And the buttons will snap into place aligned with the first one that I selected. And I did that with buttons, but you can do that with the other types of form fields as well. There's some other fields we need to fix. The big one here is for address. You'll notice that for address, the fields are named address 1, address 2, address 3, address 4, address 5. This is because the visual labels for city, state, and zip are below. So we talked about if you're using that auto detect feature, if you're going to have Acrobat automatically create form fields, it's most successful when the visible label is to the left of the form field. So Acrobat struggled with that a little bit. It just went with address because it couldn't figure out that the words city, state, and zip went with those blanks. Also, it looks like there's one blank. It can sometimes struggle with that too, just as a heads up for that. Okay, so we need to change these names to be a little more descriptive. So I'm going to double click on the one for city, address 3. So change that from address 3 to city, name, city in the tooltip. Oops. For address 4, that's our state. And then address 5 should instead be zip. Now here's another example of where we might use something different for the tooltip than we do in the name. So we want the name to match the visual or visible label. So the visible label is zip. We want the name to be zip. But for the tooltip, we might use zip code to be more clear. We need to think about not only how these things might be read by an assistive technology such as a screen reader, but also what we can do to help people who might have a cognitive disability understand what's being asked. So zip code is just a little more descriptive and clear. I'm going to close this. So again, if I were going to make this document available or post it on the web, I would want to go through and check the properties of all of these fields. We don't have time to do that for now. So we'll just assume that we've done that and that the properties are correct. And we're going to turn our attention to tab order. The tab order, and I'm pronouncing that very deliberately to distinguish it from tag order. The tab order is the order in which a user will progress through the form fields when using the tab key to navigate the form. So first we want to ensure that the right panel of the Prepare Forms tool is expanded so we can access this content in the fields area. So we've already done that. In the fields pane, we'll drag any out of order fields to the correct place. So ones that I know are going to be in the wrong place off the bat are the ones that I added. Intended audience. I just added those. They're down here at the very bottom rather than where they should be in the tab order of the form. So it looks like on the actual form, intended audience comes after registration fee. So I'm going to collapse the intended audience field, click on it, and drag it. I know I need to keep going. I can only move a little bit at once. So drag it up to just after registration fee. Come on. You can also right click and choose move, I believe. It's just taking me a minute, sorry. And an audience comes right after registration fee and before name of person submitting the application. Perfect. Let's see how it handled our changes to the address fields. Okay, it did fine with that. So my concern about that was just because I made some changes that they could have possibly been out of order, but they're not. They're where they need to be. Address 1, address 2, city, state, zip. Notice that in the form visually, phone comes after address 2, but before city. However, in the tab order in the fields pane, phone appears after zip. I'm okay with this, even though it doesn't match the visual order, because I think it makes more sense usability-wise for someone to type in all of their address information, then type in their phone number, as opposed to kind of stopping in the middle of typing in an address to type in a phone number. So I'm actually okay with where that is. I'm going to leave that there. So after we've gone through and checked to make sure that the tab order is as we wish it to be, using drag and drop to do any necessary reordering, we'll want to preview the form. So we'll do that by selecting preview in the prepare form tools up at the top of the screen. I'm selecting that now. Preview allows us to navigate through the document and fill things out. So I'm going to hit tab and let me double check that actually. Why didn't it tab into program title when I already moved that? Hold on just a second. Close. Oh, I guess I didn't move that, did I? That would be why. Let's move program title. And I added that. I deleted and added that, so that makes sense. Okay, program title. Can you guys tell that I'm not a good dragger dropper? Okay. Program title should actually be first in the tab order. So now we'll do close, hit tab in the program title field, hit tab again. Now I'm in the date. We can check our date formatting by typing the date in the wrong format. So I'm going to type April 29th, 2019, and then tab off of that, and it's automatically converted to the proper format. And that's just because we indicated that in the form field properties. Tabbing through the time, the location, hours, ethics, regulations, registration fee. Okay, now we're in the radio buttons. Radio buttons navigate with arrows, keyboard arrows. So we'll use the down arrow to move through and make a selection. So I'm hitting the down arrow key to go through the various choices, up arrow key to go back. Let's say I want to select both, and then I'll tab to the next field. From address, city, state, zip, then phone. And again, I'm okay with that. So that's all looking right. So we're almost finished with our form field work, but I'm not going to select close at this point. Rather, I'm going to go back into edit mode, and I want to clear out the data that I've entered into the form. So back in the edit mode, going into more, and selecting Clear Form. And that's going to clear out the date that I typed in and that radio button that I selected. So now we'll select Close. And again, that information I had typed in is gone. All right, I haven't saved for a minute. I'm a fan of saving early and often, and I haven't been following my own advice. So just in case, let's save a copy of this. I'm going to go to File, Save As. That's fine. I'll leave it in my Forms folder. I'm going to call this Form Fields, because I'm saving it at the point at which I've added, labeled, and ordered the form fields. So Form Fields. It's always good to have a backup. So after all of the form fields have been created and the tab order has been checked, we will add tags to the document. So you want to be sure you're happy with all the form field configurations before you're proceeding, since going back to change the form fields after the tags are created can sometimes have unpredictable results. So there's several different ways to add tags to a PDF. We're going to use auto tagging. You can access the auto tag feature in a couple different ways. You can do that by opening the accessibility tools and selecting auto tag document, or you can do that through the tags pane. And I know that we're going to be working in the tags pane in just a moment, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it that way. So let me close this. In the tags pane, I'm going to right click where it currently says no tags available and choose add tags to document. Same results, just initiating that auto tagging process from two different places. So add tags to document. Tags now appear in our tags pane. So next, we'll ensure that the tags are correct. So remember that tags are the basis of an accessible PDF file. They indicate the structure of the document, they communicate the order in which the items should be read, and they determine exactly which items will be read. And that's why, if you've learned about PDFs with me before, I always say to focus your efforts on ensuring the reading order is correct on the tag panel rather than the reading order panel. So it's vital that the tags in our document correctly reflect the function of any given item. Is it text? Is it image? Is it a table? And that the tags are in the correct order. The process for this is essentially the same as it is for any PDF file, including ones that don't have form fields, using the arrow keys to navigate the tag tree and making any corrections as necessary. So we won't have time to make all the necessary tag corrections in this document, but we will get started with the ones that are particularly important for forms. So in other words, I'm going to leave it to you to fix something like this. This first P tag, I personally would change this to multiple P tags rather than a single P tag that includes so much information. That's not the kind of change we're going to talk about since we're talking about forms today. Something else that is really obvious to me that I would want to change is the fact that the first heading in the document is an H4. The accessibility checker is going to flag that because headings in a document need to be hierarchical. So we wouldn't want our first heading to be a heading level 4. A heading level 4 should follow a heading level 3, which follows a heading level 2, and so on. The exercise files do include a final version of this with the correct tags and tag order for you to peruse on your own. I actually have that open, so I'm going to toggle onto it just to show you that really quickly. So this is the final version. It does have the correct tags and tag order. If you have any questions about this document and why things are tagged as they are, feel free to reach out to me about that. So going back to our current file that we're working with, when it comes to form tagging, the most important thing is to ensure that your form tags have a particular format. Let me bring up a picture that illustrates that. For each form field, there should be a form tag with a nested field name object reference tag. So let me say that again. For each form field, there should be a form tag. So that's the tag labeled form with a bracket on either side of it. Underneath that, so nested under it in the hierarchy, there should be an object reference tag. The name of that object reference is going to be the field name and then OBJR. So program title is the name of the field visually highlighted on the right side of this image. So that OBJR tag is named program title OBJR. So we need a form tag with nested program title OBJR that is a peer and underneath the visible label of the field. So form is a peer. It's on the same level as the hierarchy as the visible label program title. So as the form text program title. We need to go through for each of our form fields and ensure that this is the structure that's in place. Let me see actually if I can get that image to remain on the screen that I'm sharing, because I think it'll be helpful to have it as a reference. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I will try though. I don't want to make our PDF too small. Okay, I'm going to try to do this so I'll have this visual reference to refer back to. So we need to go through and make sure that each of our form fields follow this tagging format. As I said, there's a lot of opportunities to practice fixing this at formatting in the exercise file. That's a positive way of saying this is really messed up in this exercise file. In the tag tree, I'm selecting the second P tag, the second paragraph tag. And when I click on it, you can see by the visual highlighting that there's a lot of stuff under this one tag. And this becomes even more evident when you expand the P tag. Let me try to give us a little more room here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to expand the P tag. That didn't work. Expand the P tag. So we've got a whole lot of stuff all under this one P tag. Program title, date, location, number of contact hours, and registration fee. We want to break this out into separate P tags for each form field. So we're going to need to do that in two steps. First, we'll need to create P tags for each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 items. So program title, date, time, location, number of contact hours requested, ethics, regulation, registration fee, intended audience. We need separate P tags for all of those. We'll do that first. Then under each of those P tags, we'll ensure we have a tag connecting the text label of the field and a form tag with a nested object reference or OBJR tag. So I'm going to select the P tag where I want the new tags to be under. So that's this existing P tag. So I'm going to right click and select new tag. For the tag type, I'm selecting paragraph. And then I'm clicking OK. And the new blank P tag or empty P tag is created under that P tag that currently includes so much information. So I need to do that 8 more times to create a total of 9 empty P tags. So let me do that quickly. New tag, paragraph, OK. New tag, paragraph, OK. New tag, paragraph, OK. Continuing to do that. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Need 2 more. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 new empty P tags. Next, we'll need to move the content into the empty P tags. So we're not going to worry about the form fields right now. We're just going to get the actual visible content of the document into the right places. So not the form fields, but the visible text labels. I'm going to select the arrow up in the top of the ribbon to make sure it's blue. So it is blue. It's the active tool, the selection tool for text and images. And now I'm selecting the first empty P tag that I added to make it blue as well. Now I'm going to select the visible text date. Both the text I've selected and that empty P tag should be blue. Oh, it looks like it unselected the P tag, so let me click on that. Okay, so both are blue. Blue with blue, the P tag where we want it to go, the visible text that we want to go there. After making sure they're both selected, we want to right-click on the empty P tag and then choose Create Tag from Selection. And now we have a tag for date under that P tag. I'm going to do the same for the rest of these. Select an empty P tag, select the visible text, make sure blue is matching blue, and then right-click and choose Create Tag from Selection. So I'll try to do that relatively quickly. So after date, we have time, blue with blue, new tag from Selection, location, blue with blue. Let me try that again. Blue with blue. Create tag from Selection. Sorry guys, this is a little tedious. I'm continuing to create new tags from Selection. So ethics, sometimes it likes it when I select the P tag first and sometimes it doesn't. Okay. Almost done. Registration fee. I'm going to do just the text, and if we have time, we'll go back and work with that $sign later. Okay, I actually have an extra. The reason why there's an extra is because we can use the existing P tag for program title. So we don't need this one. So we could actually delete that tag. Okay, so we've created a P tag for each of these items that was encompassed by one P tag previously. Now that we have all the P tags correct, we need to find those form tags to go with them. So the first of the P tags we added is for date. Let me see if I can find the form tag for date under that P tag that had everything in it. So I'm going to expand that. Oh, this is the P tag that had everything in it. Okay, and see if we can find form for date. Okay, so here's form. And here's date, the OBJR underneath it. But date and time are both under one form tag. So I actually am going to need to create a new one. So the form tag needs to appear after the tag containing the text label of the field. So I'm going to go back to the content box for date that I just added, right-click on it, and selecting New Tag. The type is Form. I'm going to say OK. And now that I have a form tag for the date, I can go back and grab this date OBJR. So I'm going to right click on that, choose cut. You can also drag and drop, by the way. I just prefer sort of we saw that I struggle with the drag and drop a little bit, so I like cutting. So I cut the OBJR, and we need to move it into the right spot. So I'm going to right click on the form tag for date and choose to paste as a child. And that's why it's so important to ensure that when you're working with the properties of your form fields, that the name you specify is the same as the visual label. Just think about how difficult this work would be if there were 5 things labeled date or 5 things labeled address. So being as specific as possible with your names is really helpful, and having them match the visible label text. All right, so let's double check our format against the reference. We need to have a P tag that has a nested form tag. So we've got that, a P tag with a form tag nested under it. The form tag needs to appear after and as a peer of the tag containing the name of the field, and we have that. So it's a peer, it's on the same level in the hierarchy as date, and it comes after it. And then that form tag includes the OBJR tag with the field name. So we would need to do that, do the same thing for all of the fields for which we've created empty P tags. And again, for the sake of time, we're not going to have time to do that for all of them. I'll do one more though, just to kind of walk through that process. So we've got our P tag for date. Let's do time. So I would go up here and try to find the form tag for time. There's my form tag and my OBJR for time. So I could cut form. And then I would want to paste this, not as a child, but just paste, because again, that should be a peer. So we would go through each of those to ensure that the formatting is there, making any adjustments as necessary. This can be a really tedious process. One of the challenges is finding where the tags are to move them into the right spot. In our exercise file, remember how we have all these P tags together in one spot? If we want to know if we have a separate P tag for something, we can try to use find to do that. So let's say if we don't know where the city P tag is, we can go to the ribbon, make sure the selection arrow is blue, highlight that visible text city, go to the tags options drop-down menu, and choose find tag from selection. And that'll take us to the spot in the tag tree where that tag is found. Obviously, there's some work that needs to be done here. We need to break out city, state, and zip. But that is a bit of a time saver. Unfortunately, you can't select a form field and do the same. So you can't select a form field and say, find the form field. You have to look for those by expanding and collapsing the tag tree. So there's some other work to be done, but that's the process. Delete the existing tags. We did that, from the beginning by going into our tag tree and deleting the tags, adding the form fields, which we did by using the Prepare Form tool, setting and verifying form field properties. We did that by double-clicking or right-clicking on each form field and adjusting properties as necessary, ensuring that the tab order is correct in the fields area of the Prepare Forms tool, and then adding tags to the document. Forms are hard. They take a lot of work. The things that make it easier are auto-generating the form fields and auto-tagging, which is why we did those things today. There are always exceptions. Depending on the nature of the document, you might not want to delete all the tags before you add the form fields. It might be worthwhile to you to preserve those tags, add your form fields, and go back and do some tag cleanup later. The trainer that I learned this from shared the story of working on a federal form that had something like 100 different radio buttons in it. And it would have just been extraordinarily tedious to go back and reconstruct tagging for all of those. So there's always exceptions. Sometimes you might want to manually add form fields or manually add tags or both. Today's is but one possible workflow. It's a workflow that we think works best for many of the documents that we see. It's the one that I use for any interactive forms that I create with Acrobat. I'm happy to refer you to resources that address other scenarios. So I'm going to stop here. I hope that you have found this useful. Let me get some contact information up on the screen. If you found this useful, you won't hesitate to reach out to us if we can be a help to you as you put what you learned into practice. I'm also pasting our contact information into the chat. You can get in touch with our team by visiting accessibility.ua.edu or via email at accessibility@ua.edu. At this time, I'm going to ask if anyone has questions or thoughts to share. It looks like I already have a couple coming in via chat that I'll address first, but feel free to continue to type in the chat or turn on your mic after I address those. So I've got a question that sits me privately, but I'm going to answer to the group because it's pertinent to the whole group. So are you available to check the accessibility of documents that someone has created and correct any areas? Unfortunately, our office doesn't have the staffing to do PDF remediation. I'm happy to look at a document, but the response that you're going to get back from me is to point you towards instructional resources that address what you're trying to figure out. So for example, oh, I keep getting this error related to tag hierarchy. How do I fix that? I wouldn't be able to fix it for you, but I would say, here's how tags need to be nested H1, H2, H3, H4. Here's the information that addresses that. We'd really like to be able to provide more actual assistance with remedying PDF documents, but we can't. So again, happy to weigh in, point you towards resources, but I want you to know that that's the type of response to expect. Another question, are there any accessibility needs for multi-line text fields? For example, setting things so that the text doesn't drop below a certain size when typing. Yes, great question. So I have a resource that I'm planning to share with y'all. Let me pull this up on the screen and see if I can find it quickly. Carmen Matthews, who works for the state of Texas, presented an awesome session on accessible PDF form design at the Access U conference last year that goes into much more detail about formatting. And it does address text size and flow and resizing. So I'm going to share that with everyone. Lisa, it looked like that question came from you specifically. If that doesn't address what you're asking, let me know and I'll do a little more research. Yes, there are some suggestions around that that may be useful. Actually, I'll go ahead and paste the link to that in the chat. Oops. There we go. Paste the link. Okay, not seeing anything coming in. I'll go ahead and stop the recording and end the meeting. Thank you all so much for your time and attention today. We are also offering this session as a classroom workshop tomorrow. So if you learned something that you think might benefit a colleague, feel free to let them know that they can register to come learn the same content in Gordon Palmer tomorrow. And again, we'll be sending out the recording that you're welcome to share with others. All right, thanks a lot. Have a great day.